JJ Barnes and you're watching another episode of Creative Writing Advice. If you don't know me, I'm an author, a screenwriter, a filmmaker, a blogger and obviously a YouTuber, and I do a series of writing advice to help you become a better and more confident writer. So I had a comment from another YouTuber on here who wanted me to talk about the art of arcing characters and not breaking them. So your characters are the biggest reason your audience come to your story. Whether it is on screen or on a page, your characters are the biggest draw. Because however wonderful your world is and however fantastical your plot is, if your characters are boring or unbelievable, you have nothing to draw your audience in, nobody for them to connect to, and nothing for them to care about because it's human emotion that we connect with. So your characters have to be nailed down right. And arcing your characters is a really, really important part of who they become through your story and keeping them consistent. Because even if your character starts the story one way and grows and changes through the story, which is important and you need to do, and I'll do another video on that, right? Even if they start and end as different people almost, how they get there is incredibly important, and that is their arc. You take them on a journey and you show your audience that process. If you break them, that is when, moment to moment, scene to scene, they just behave differently. They might be headed there, and you as the writer might know that they were going to have a mental snap and they were going to go on a killing spree, or that they were going to become really confident and able to get up on a stage and sing. But if you start them out as really placid and calm or shy, and then you just shove them into that situation without showing your audience how they got there, that is when you have a problem. That is when they will not believe it anymore, they won't understand, and your character is broken. They don't feel real. Because when you establish who they are at the beginning, you have to know how to move with them. You have to take your audience with them as they change. The example I'm going to use is from Stephen King's The Shining. And you might be more familiar with the book, or you might be more familiar with the Kubrick adaptation on screen. But the character I'm going to be talking about is Jack Torrance. At the beginning of The Shining, Jack Torrance is a bit of a, what's a polite way of wording this? A bit of a smug douche. He is completely willing to make his wife and his son go up to the mountains to be alone for months on end without really considering whether it's good for them. He doesn't really take his wife's feelings into account. But he's not a murderer, you know what I mean? He's a perfectly normal bad guy, essentially. And then you are taken through his journey. You watch him when he gets there being that guy. He wants to just sit and write his book, and even though he took the job in the Overlook, he expects his wife to actually do all the maintenance and all the cleaning, all the things that were supposed to be his job, because he wants to write. But again, that's kind of standard douchery, you know what I mean? That's not outright violent or hostile. It's just a bit useless as a person. So he wants to write. Then you start to see him crack. And little by little. And while all the things are going on around him, you have the little boy and his visions, and you have the poor wife struggling as much as she is with all of the responsibilities, and watching her husband become more and more isolated and aggressive, and watching his son going through obviously a lot of trauma. But Jack, he just starts to go. The first time he goes into the bar, he sees the bartender. He doesn't see anyone else. Next time he goes in, room full of people. When he goes into the bathroom and he sees the woman in the bath. I think if early in the story he had done that, if when he'd first arrived he saw that naked woman in the bath, he would not have just gone up to her all like, ooh, and kissed her. I don't think he'd have done that. That's because his journey took him there. You start to see his cracks. You start to see the psychological impact of that isolation in the hotel, and obviously the problems that are there with the ghosts and the ghouls and the mystics. Until you get to the end, when all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, and the full break and running around. But if he'd just gone straight there, if Stephen King had been like, you know what, if I throw them up into the Overlook, and then as soon as those doors are shut, as soon as the snow comes and they're trapped, then he's just going to go on a murder spree, the audience would be, well, sure, that's a lot more time spent running and scared and the emotions are heightened and it's all very intense, but how did he get there? How did he go from being a normal family guy who's a bit useless and inconsiderate to that rampaging monster? You have to show the breakdown. You have to show him getting snappier. You have to show him starting to hallucinate slowly a bit more and more. You have to show your audience how that process has come about. If you leave them out, your audience will not understand what is going on. They will not care about your characters, and they will not believe that that is what's happening. And once your audience doesn't believe it, once your audience is like, no, can't get on board with this is nonsense, you've lost them. And if they won't finish your book or finish your film because the characters are broken, just because the story requires it but the character doesn't suit it, you are lost. So you have to do it. Look at what Stephen King did with Jack Torrance. You have to slowly build it. You have to seed it. Any character can be taken on any journey to do anything. Genuinely any. You can make any couple build to falling in love. You can make any shy character become brave enough to sing on a stage. You can make even a gentle, non-inconsiderate man, a gentle-minded sweetheart, become a murderer. Anybody, and that sounds quite scary about us as people, but it's true. With the right prodding, the right circumstances, the right external input, or perhaps they've had it there all along and it's just starting to eke out. Whatever it is that you want your character to do, you can make them do it, but you have to take your audience with them. Now, this is true with your protagonist and antagonist especially, but it's true of side characters too. You have to treat every single character in your story as if they're the protagonist of their own story. So if you have your friend who is the best friend to your protagonist and you want her to, say, sleep with your protagonist's husband, if you don't show your audience how she goes from being the best mate, worthy of the trust and devotion of your protagonist, someone who your protagonist relies on, if you don't show how that's going to happen and why, they won't believe it. Why would that loyal friend suddenly do that? When you either show it because she has the potential there all along and your protagonist hasn't noticed it, in which case you just show little betrayals, little things that she might not have noticed but the audience do. Or you show external circumstances pressuring her. Perhaps she is going through heartbreak. Perhaps she is feeling in pain. Perhaps the husband is layering her with affection and she's desperate for it and she makes a mistake. But either way, if she just suddenly sleeps with her friend's husband and there is no provocation to it, it just makes good conflict in your story and you want that to go on, your audience will just be like, well, alright, yeah, I get what you're doing, but it's not real. Make sure any changes in your character, any circumstances you want to end them with, are seeded slowly from the beginning. That is your arc, your journey from how one character starts to how they end, and taking your audience with them on that arc. And it's a really important part of storytelling. As I say, if you don't do it, your story isn't believable anymore. So thank you very much for watching another one of my videos. I hope this has been helpful, and thank you for the question. I really appreciate it. I love getting your little hints and tips of things I can talk about, always fun. And don't forget, you can find me on Twitter, it's the writing community over there. All my social media is below. Come and find me, come and talk to me. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook, and yeah, I'm always talking to people what they're working on. I love talking about books and films, everything like that, so come find me and we can chat. Also, if you go to my website, which is www.jjbarnes.co.uk, as well as all my social media over there, you can find links to my work, the books, the film, the TV stuff I'm working on, everything I'm doing. And come find me. If you have any questions, please drop a comment below or find me on social media and we can talk about it, and hopefully I will be able to help if you are stuck, or just talk about things that you're working on just for the fun of it, because that's always good too. So thank you very much, and I will be back again soon. Bye.